Hello, I'm John Tanner. I'm Editor-in-Chief for TelecomAsia. We're here on the sidelines of Telco Strategies 2016 in KL, and joining me now is Paul Scanlan. He's the President of Business and Network Consulting at Huawei Technologies. Paul, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me, John. Always a pleasure.
So we're here talking about digital transformation. What are the current trends that you're seeing in Asia Pacific that are driving the need for this?
All right, it's a very interesting question, and it's not just applicable to Asia, it's actually a global phenomenon. And as you may recall, in 2006 the whole world changed with iPhones and things like this, but it wasn't just the iPhone, it was the platform that was the thing that was changing. And that allowed a different type of ecosystem. So just keep that in your mind. That's one driver that has been happening since the last sort of 10 years, or just under 10 years, 9 years now. The second component is really what people are doing, their behavior. And what we've seen is that there are 5 things that are driving behavioral changes, or the 5 components of those, and we've called it ROADS, R-O-A-D-S, so real-time, online, always on, etc., do-it-yourself social. Yeah, so these sorts of things are capturing the behavioral change. So one, you have an ecosystem that's changed, and the other one, you're starting to see the behavioral changes largely as a result of that platform that allowed that ecosystem and then more people to play. So what that's done is it's now driven telecom operators to a point where they're having challenges from both profit and revenue, sometimes brand and market share. And so what Huawei has been doing more recently, in fact in the last 3 of those years, since I've been taking this position since the last time we met, we're now trying to position a more consultative approach to operators to try to help them predominantly do one thing, and that's to help them in this transformation program. And what Huawei has done is we found sort of 5 key themes, 5 initiatives, we call it the Big 5, that we think are probably the root of all the foundation of what operators ought to be doing to become a digital provider.
That leads to my next question, actually, because Huawei has been talking up its Big 5 initiatives. Walk us through those and tell us what the Big 5 are. One
of them, just as you mentioned this just before we walked in the room, is about this thing called a pipe. And that really is how to make the pipe as big as possible. And that means deploying all your the technical thing, right? Deploying your resources in order to make your asset, your key asset, which is the pipe, okay? Connecting the consumer through a device all the way through to the service that they have signed up for, as broad as possible. And that means, we have the concept of giga. And that means if it's fiber, then if it's fixed, it's 1 gig, minimum 1 gig. Even by devices, mobile devices, it's 1 gig. From an architecture perspective, the big architecture we call it, it's another name for, if you like, for this phrase, software-defined or network, virtual network NFV. What we're trying to say is that the architecture, wherever you're going to invest, if you're going to invest $1 or $1 million or $100 million, where should you invest? What's the right architecture platform you should invest? And we see it clearly as being data center with a cloud orchestration, and that means it's a virtualized architecture. We see in the transport and the controller all being software defined. Examples of these will be a company like Deutsche Telekom's pan-European strategy. Operators have taken a traditional network where they've wanted to make it all IP or all IP-ish. This is very topical for Asia specifically because the networks are becoming, they have more spectrum, so they're starting to aggregate. They're starting to think, where do I invest in? And in a fixed, how do I do it? And these components are now starting to be recommendations to be software-defined architecture, because that is definitely the future. It will improve time to market, not just operational costs, but particularly time to market. There are other components of Big 5. One of them really is the services, and what we're trying to say is don't just think about offering deployment of services in turnkey of network components or outsourcing of this. It's really Huawei's belief that selecting the right couple of partners to essentially outsource or manage all of those things that are not your core business. So this big initiative, the next one we have, is in the center, which is really about the digital enablement platform. And that's everything that covers everything from consumer behavior analysis, which is your big data, together with the ability to provide customer care end to end, which includes billing, of course. So we see that as a package in the middle under our big strategy. So video, the enablement component, the architecture, the services, and the pipe.
So do operators have to do all 5 of these at once, or can they pick and choose? Is it the question of their strategy or their budget, or what's the consideration?
You're right about the last part. It's really about budget. It's all about, but it's application of resources, right, John? So where do I put my money? Do I invest 100 million here, 100 million there? So if I'm going to do these 5 initiatives, do I put 100 million in the big services? Do I make the pipe bigger? Which one do I do first? And what Huawei has found is no size fits all, and it's not possible for everybody to adopt an approach that does everything together at the same rate. So what we've done, I now run the consulting department in Huawei, and most operators 3 years ago didn't know Huawei had a consulting team. And it's really about, operators know what to do. Before we used to tell them what to do, now they know they ask for help. Tell us what to do. What they really need today is really about how to do it. And that's about how to invest. And that's why I mentioned the last point you made in your question, John, is about investment. How do they invest? Where should they invest and at what time? So when we have this information, then it becomes mapping what we have found with what their targets are.